Ever delivered exactly what the client asked for, but they still said the project was a failure? I'm PM Panda, PMP certified, 25 years leading projects across MNCs in systems integration and digital transformation. I teach what actually works when deadlines slip and stakeholders panic. Let's get into it. Are you focused on delivering outputs or achieving real business outcomes? Outputs are simply the products of your efforts, while business outcomes represent the tangible results that drive growth and success. It's essential to align your strategies with measurable outcomes that impact your bottom line. Prioritize actions that lead to meaningful results, ensuring your efforts translate into value for your organization. Remember, it's not just about what you produce, but the difference it makes in your business journey. Imagine you have worked for 6 months, you hit every milestone, you stayed under budget, you delivered exactly what was written in the initial contract, but when you finally hand over the keys, the client is frustrated. The tool is live, but their core problem still exists. You feel like you won, but the business feels like they lost. This happens because we often fall into the trap of focusing purely on the deliverable, what we call the output, instead of the actual business value, which is the outcome. When we focus only on the checklist, we lose sight of why the project was funded in the first place. Today, we are breaking down the focus on value principle to pivot your career. To fix this, we first need to define our terms clearly. In the PMBOK 8th edition, an output is simply a product, result, or service generated by a process. Think of it as the tangible thing you hand over at the end of a phase. For example, the physical lines of software code or a newly constructed warehouse building are outputs. An outcome, however, is the end result or consequence of that project. It encompasses the long-term effects and the actual value generated for the organization. If the output is a new CRM system, the outcome is the 15% increase in sales productivity that the system was designed to create. Without the outcome, the output is just an expensive piece of digital furniture. When we talk about business value, we mean the net quantifiable benefit that contributes to the health of the organization. This isn't always just about money. Value can be tangible, like increased market share or cash flow, but it can also be intangible. Intangible value includes things like brand recognition, public benefit, or even the general well-being of your employees. The core focus on value principle tells us that project teams must continually evaluate and adjust. You cannot just blindly execute the original baseline scope if the world changes around you. If a deliverable no longer enables productivity or solves the underlying need, it loses its value. In that case, continuing the project as planned might actually be more harmful than helpful. In my experience, I have seen teams deliver a tech rollout where the software was technically perfect. It passed every test and met every specification. However, because we didn't focus on the outcome of user efficiency, we saw zero adoption. The staff hated it and went back to using spreadsheets. We delivered the output, but the value was zero because the outcome failed. I once saw this play out in a hospital logistics project. We implemented a state-of-the-art tracking system for medical supplies. The output, the software, was delivered on time. But because the system ignored the actual physical workflow of the nurses, it caused an immediate operational freeze. The hospital couldn't move supplies. We focused so much on the tool that we broke the outcome of patient care. Let's look at a worked example. Imagine a global logistics company launching a new automated package tracking system. The technical output is the installation of high-speed scanners and the supporting database. That is what the project manager is tracking on their Gantt chart. But the business doesn't actually care about scanners. The business cares about the outcome, a 20% reduction in lost packages. If the scanners are installed perfectly, but the warehouse staff don't understand how to use the data to find those lost packages, the project has failed its primary mission. The output is a success, but the outcome is a total failure. The project manager must ensure the staff is trained and the processes are updated because that is where the real value lives. In my experience, ignoring user training is the quickest way to make expensive software become shelfware. Shelfware is what happens when you focus so much on the technical installation that you forget the human transition. You must ensure that the output, the tool, actually enables the outcome, the better performance. Otherwise, you've just bought a very expensive paperweight for the warehouse manager. I saw this recently with a hospital logistics project. We implemented a new system to track surgical kits. The output was delivered on time and within budget. However, the system design ignored the specific high-pressure workflow of the nurses during an emergency. It added 3 extra steps to their process. This caused an immediate operational freeze because we prioritized the output over the outcome. When we ignored the outcome of operational efficiency in favor of the output of tracking accuracy, the project became harmful. The nurses reverted to their old manual methods within 48 hours. To avoid this, you must keep the business case front and center during every single weekly status meeting. Don't just report on the schedule. Report on the projected value and the health of the outcome. Here's what most people get wrong after 25 years of watching this. The first major mistake is assuming that success just means finishing on time and under budget. This is the iron triangle trap. While being efficient is good, efficiency in project management processes is completely meaningless if the project outcomes fail to deliver value. Don't be the person who builds a perfect bridge to nowhere. The second mistake is failing to adapt to change. Many project managers proceed rigidly with the original scope because that's what the contract says. But if a market shift happens 6 months into a year-long project and your original output no longer holds value, you are wasting the company's money. Real leadership means having the courage to stop, pivot, or change direction when the value proposition disappears. In my experience, stakeholders respect a project manager who says, "This plan no longer makes sense for our goals," much more than one who blindly follows a dead plan. Your job is to be the guardian of the company's investment. If you see the value slipping away because the environment has changed, you must be the one to speak up and propose a realignment. To wrap this up, remember that outputs are the things you build, while outcomes are the long-term effects and the value you generate. Business value can be measured in both tangible ways, like revenue, and intangible ways, like brand reputation. Finally, you must constantly evaluate your project's alignment to business objectives to ensure that your work stays relevant and actually delivers. Every decision you make during the project lifecycle should be viewed through the lens of value. If a change request helps achieve the final outcome, it might be worth the extra cost. If a specific task doesn't contribute to the ultimate value, maybe it shouldn't be a priority. Stop measuring success by tasks completed and start measuring it by the impact you have. Here is your actionable next step for this week. Review your current project's business case or charter. Write down the single biggest outcome it is supposed to achieve. Completely separate from the physical deliverables. If you can't name that outcome in one simple sentence, you need to speak with your project sponsor immediately to clarify the true purpose of your work. If this breakdown helped, hit like. Subscribe for practitioner lessons every week.